Blog Talk Radio.
And here we go.
All right, welcome to the Daily Nerd Show. We haven't been on for our daily interviews in a couple of weeks, but we are back today, and we are with two young filmmakers, Jeff Pinilla and Matt Pourviseh. And I do apologize if I mispronounced your last name again, Matt, but that's the way it goes on that Nerd Show. Anyway, thank you for being on the show, and we are going to be talking about their film, which is circling the film festival. Throughout the country. Their film, The Earth, the Way I Left It. So, Jeff, Matt, let's just get right into it. Tell us a little bit about your film. I'll let you go first, Jeff.
Well, the film is actually, it's about a small child who's coping with a death in the family, and she's actually visited by a small, tiny astronaut that crash lands in her backyard. And the themes of the short film are, how children view death and the way their innocence kind of protects them, their imagination kind of protects their innocence. And, there's a lot of nostalgia built into the short film. I mean, it's only 17 minutes long, so, it's a specific point of view. And that point of view is how a child copes with something so tragic as a death.
Okay. How did you guys come to write this film?
Well, basically 3 years ago, I had just wrapped up on my first short film, and I kind of saw a coworker of mine. He designed T-shirts, and he had this design on the T-shirt that was a astronaut holding two mermaids in his hands, and I thought, well, this is so interesting. It's so out of this world. So I knew I wanted to do something that involved an astronaut, but I wasn't sure what. And then I kind of sat with that idea for about a year. And then finally the story just started getting fleshed out, and me and Matt had worked on a lot of things together. We went to school with each other, and then eventually I just called him up and I said, hey, would you be interested in producing this for me? And, maybe we can co-write it together. And so we did, and we spent a good 6 months just kind of fleshing out the story, changing so many things, and eventually about this time last year we were ready to go and we were in production. So that's pretty much how that kind of went down.
So this wasn't something you developed while you guys were in school. It just came about based off a T-shirt idea?
Yes, yeah, it just kind of came about, it kind of happened. And, we were both at the time working on our own projects separately and just doing our own things. We had already been about, Matt, I'd say 3 years after graduation? 4 years after graduating. So we were already just kind of doing our own stuff. And then this was just an idea that happened, and it worked out. Okay.
Well, I do have to actually compliment you guys on the film. Very, very intriguing, and definitely brings out a lot of themes about, the imagination and how we cope. One of the things that kind of struck me, and when we talk about films, we do on this show. We're very big about scores and soundtracks and all that. Where does the music come from throughout this? Because, there's no dialogue. All it is, really this great score and this soundtrack, especially towards the end of the film.
Well, the song at the end, the Sigur Rós song at the end of the film, that's something that when Jeff first told me about co-writing the movie with him, that's something that I thought about on the subway, just listening to that song, and basically wrote that scene in my head. And then once me and Jeff started writing the film, we kind of wrote the scene to the song, the Sigur Rós song at the end of the film. The rest of the music is completely composed by Jeff, just in the editing suite, which took a lot of time, and I think that's really a strong suit of the film too. So I'm really glad that you noticed that. So we thank you for that.
Hey, we like to do our research and give our viewers a little bit more than some of those other shows out there. So
appreciate that.
Yeah. No, and it's funny that you talk about that. It's been, again, just this, very big reoccurring theme on our show about how powerful a score or a soundtrack really can be. We actually just got through doing the whole press event and interviews with the cast of The Fault in Our Stars this past weekend here in Dallas. And not that you're not worthy of screaming teenage girls, but we appreciate that we're not having to deal with that during this interview. But I use that as the latest example of how powerful a soundtrack can really be in everything. So my next question for you is, do you actually think a score is more powerful, and, great example being the Star Wars John Williams score, which is, tends to be the most iconic, or an actual soundtrack with, individual artists and songs? Or is it just a combination of both that really fits whatever, the theme of your film is?
Well, I definitely think it's a combination of both, and it depends on really what you're doing. We did a super indie film that, it's a short film, so we weren't going to go out and get, a expensive composer to, have a full orchestra like John Williams to do it with. But, I definitely think it's all about what you're doing. It's like Jeff and I right now are editing a feature film that I produced in the fall. And that's a total, it's a hard indie film, so it needs a hard indie soundtrack with bands you've never heard of, but you want it, as soon as you hear it, you want to jump online and Spotify, who's this band that's playing this, weird song for this weird film. So, yeah, it really depends on what you're doing. If you got to mix it both, perfect. It just depends on how you can balance that.
I think the key also is to not have it, a lot of people, we've been doing the festival route, and there's a lot of people that have a 5-minute, 10-minute short film, yet the soundtrack sounds like it's for a 2-hour-long epic cinematic Batman movie, and that's not the case. So you also have that where some people, there's that disconnect of like, whoa, you're not doing this mega epic film, So that's the other thing you got to watch out for whenever you're doing this.
Well, it sounds like to me you're basically saying that the music you have should be subtle but poignant, for the film that you're doing.
Exactly. That's what we think. It's really funny when we're sitting in film festivals watching really hard indie films, and it sounds like the John Williams soundtrack to 7D footage of bad costumes and bad makeup, and it's not that epic, man. They need to calm down a little bit.
Well, sometimes if you, and no offense to any filmmaker or anything in the creative types, but sometimes when you don't have anything that's really that good, then you have to overcompensate with your music. That's your middle-aged Porsche overcompensating for other things than your film.
I think it's really important. It's really important just to take a step back and look at things objectively and kind of get out of your head when you're doing something like this, because it's like Jeff said, it's a total disconnect when you have a score that overpowers and overshadows the visual image. It totally distracts from what you're seeing, and it makes it feel like two separate pieces, really.
Right.
So stay away from the Porsche until you're ready to drive the Porsche, maybe.
We're just going to keep dropping metaphors on this interview. That's right, because we are the creative guys.
All day, man. Let's do it.
So keeping on the theme of music and stuff like that, what are, especially for indie films, do you feel like that you have to have indie bands or indie music stuff that people really haven't heard of to make it more poignant in your story, or can you have mainstream music?
It really depends. For what we're doing right now, we've got a feature film that there's a lot of great talent in front of the camera, but that's not necessarily widespread recognizable. So it kind of makes sense to me on an indie level to go with indie bands, people who are just as hungry as the filmmakers are, and you definitely it definitely accentuates the passion piece when you do that. It's like if you put the most popular song that's on the radio in an indie film like that, it just creates a feeling. It's not as organic, I think.
So now I'm curious from the both of you, what for a score in a film, what would you consider the most iconic? What what leaps out at you? And you don't necessarily have to say anything by John Williams, but because that's always iconic. But something that for you that the score is beautiful, it doesn't take away from the film. And then a sub question, an actual soundtrack of various artists that really, makes the film great?
Awesome question.
Well, I'll tell you, one of my favorite soundtracks is actually one of my favorite songs. I'll give you a specific song on the soundtrack. Was Barbarian Horde from Gladiator, that I listened to over and over again. This was back, 99, 2000?
Right.
And, I didn't know much about who composed or anything. Obviously, that was Hans Zimmer, but then, I was so close to this that I'd try to learn on every instrument how to play a version of it. And then I was actually in marching band in high school, and then all of a sudden the year came when they were going to play that specific song, and I was just geeking out like crazy. This thing, created such emotion in me, and that's that's a score. That's not a sound. It's an actual score of a song, and that's still to this day that's one of my favorite soundtracks I think of all time. I don't know about Matt. Here, I'll let Matt answer the second part of that question.
Of score or soundtrack?
Yeah.
My favorite.
Well, actually,
score,
I want to know both because I think there's a difference. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. My favorite score is the main theme to Wong Kar-wai's films, In the Mood for Love and 2046. If you've ever seen those movies,
Okay. Wow.
Eugenia's theme. That score is probably the most powerful score I've ever heard, and it fits the visual image. It's supposed to be kind of operatic and flow moving, so it kind of fits. As far as soundtrack goes,
as far as various artists, one of my favorites that is from Motorcycle Diaries, which is a Walter Salles film. I don't know if you guys saw it. It was the guy who actually
film.
Gustavo Santaolalla did the soundtrack, and that is that was all just guitar and a mix. And there was really one vocal piece in there, which was Al Otro Lado del Rio, which was an amazing song. But it was one song. The rest of it was just guitar. So that's another great soundtrack that actually included a different type of feel. It wasn't just an orchestra,
I feel like I'm in High Fidelity here where we're arguing in the record shop about obscure stuff. But no, I think those are all excellent choices and everything. We did a show about 2 years ago talking about the best all-time soundtracks, and we kind of rated it, and everybody had their own different choices. And you don't always want to be obvious in your choices, but unanimously, everybody picked as at least in their top 5 the Crow soundtrack. All music from the early 90s and 80s, and then has an obscure Cure song on there, and Stone Temple Pilots, and it really just fit the dirty and grittiness of that film.
I gotta say, I agree, man. I agree. It's like a Helmet, Rollins Band. That's a great soundtrack. Yeah.
Yeah, and most of those bands aren't together anymore, and it makes me feel my age because I was in high school when that film came out. That it's 20 years old now, but I use that as a great example of really fitting. having this very dark music that's not depressing, that just fits with the mood.
Yeah.
Anyway, we actually got a caller. Would you guys like to take a call?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. I didn't actually put the call number out there, but let's take a question from the audience out there. So, hello, you're on the Daily Nerd Show. What's your name?
This is April.
Okay. Did you have a question for the filmmakers?
I'm actually Matt's sister.
Hi.
Matt, are you? Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, Matt, are you paying your sister to get some calls in? Because there's no shame in that whatsoever.
No, my sister's actually in Tennessee, and I'm in New York City, so I really don't know how she found out about this.
Well, yes. I will expect a check in the mail, by the way.
All right.
And also, I noticed Jeff had posted on Facebook about being on this radio show, and I was like, well, heck, yeah. So I just want to tell everybody that this movie is wonderful, fabulous. I've seen it 10 times, and I cannot be more prouder than I am of both of those guys.
Thank you.
Well, all right.
Thanks, April. Appreciate it.
Thank you for calling in.
And you're welcome. And the
I think I accidentally cut it off in mid-sentence. Sorry about that.
No,
by the way, family's always the best PR in the world. I still have a grandmother that, tells everybody at the YMCA that I'm the greatest writer in the world. So it always helps to be able to have that. But no, your sister's absolutely right. This is a great film. So I want to get back more into this story. It seems like it's a very personal story, even though you talk about you came up with the idea. But a child dealing with death and all that. Is this character based on someone you guys know?
To be honest, here's how it went down. During that time, this was December 2012, I believe. There was a time period where I didn't get to go home that Christmas. I'm originally from Dallas, Texas, so I didn't get to go home, and I was stuck here in New York, and I started watching a whole bunch of my home movies. And 5 days in a row of watching your home movies, you just start feeling like complete crap. I was just like looking at myself as a child, seeing myself running around. I grew up in the 90s, so I'm thinking, oh, man, you had it great. What a great time to grow up in, and I kept saying, like, look, this kid knows nothing, because you see yourself and you're, like, so innocent and just jolly and free and happy. And so I was really dealing with a lot of emotional issues just watching this footage. So I knew I had this story about this astronaut that I wanted to do, but I didn't know how to put those feelings and those emotions into that film. And so those two things kind of started segueing. I personally haven't dealt with that experience in the way that the character does in the short film, but I knew that I wanted to feel or deal with something that was about a child losing their innocence and coming to terms with it. And the strongest way that happens is, when a child deals with death. I mean, that's, so while I didn't have that specific thing to write about, I did have all the feelings and the emotions and the nostalgia to write about. And that's why even when you watch the short, you'll see there's a lot of Super 8mm film and a lot of shots like that really, that could be anybody's, home movies. People always come up to me and ask me at the Q&As, was that you? Was that you as a little boy? No, we shot that all ourselves. We planned it, but it creates that emotion. And so that's really, and then when I brought Matt into the process, Matt brought in the whole Christmas touch, and he brought in the whole, it's a time period. Now, we never say out loud it's the 60s, but it feels that way. It's supposed to feel like a time period, And I'll let Matt touch a little bit more on this.
Oh, you said everything I was going to say, man. It's just, it's about being a kid, It's like, to me, I'm obsessed. I'm a grown man now. I'm obsessed with Christmas and still want to be an astronaut on some level. So it's, everything that we put in that film was just about our childhood. That's it.
Well, here's one thing that I definitely see, and I think this is actually kind of sad that we don't have a space program here in the U.S. anymore where there's national coverage of going to the moon or other places, or we're not planning a mission to Mars. We have grown up with that kind of stuff. I mean, granted, we weren't around in the 60s at the heyday, but it was still, shuttle missions and all of that. I don't think that there's, any one of us that wouldn't love to be an astronaut and go into space, and be able to have that experience. And if we, we're all super rich and could afford it, that we wouldn't write that check immediately to go there.
Yeah.
But the only thing that we can kind of get with it nowadays is having that innocence of a child, because there really isn't that. I don't know anybody now that's, growing up and saying, I want to be an astronaut, because we don't have that. And I think that's sad. I think that, that's taken away your childhood of being able to look over the horizon and wanting to explore, strange new worlds.
Yeah.
And no, I'm not trying to quote the intro to Star Trek, even though it seems that way. Or am I? But still, I think that's a very iconic thing of our childhood, because it's about, again, looking over the horizon and wanting to go off and see places that we've only read about or looked at pictures on the internet of, you know.
Well, that's why, you know, the whole thing of innocence is one of those things that when we were young, we were told you can be anything you want to be. When
Right.
we're older, it's like, yeah, I know I can be anything I want to be, but I also need to, like, make a living, and I need to pay my bills. And so, you know, what happens with this character, you know, is he lives on being innocent because he was still too early in life to be anything other than that. You know what I mean? So you see, so in a way, it's, you know, we did leave it, not to give any spoilers, but, you know, we did leave it for the audience to interpret, you know, is this really a spirit there or is it not? Is it in her imagination or is it not? And where's, you know, this astronaut going? Like, you know, is it him actually continuing to be what he always wanted to be because he was so young? Or is it her seeing, look, there he is, he's just being what he wanted to be?
Well, and, you know, you do, because you have the aspect of everybody, you know, again, I'm not trying to give any spoilers, but, you know, them dressed in black, and it's, you know, dealing with death, and, you know, it's also, you know, the way we look at an afterlife. And, you know, we're a lot more cynical about an afterlife that when we're grown-ups compared to when we're a kid about what that afterlife would be.
Correct. Yeah.
And, you know, going to the stars and going to a place that you've only read about and all that seems exciting and stuff like that, again, gets back to that innocence. And how
one of the things that I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I'm done.
No, I was saying, one of the things I do come across a lot, because I spent, you know, so many hours just, like, listening to people and talking to people that had dealt with, you know, this issue, that had dealt with losing somebody, so especially so early on. I talked to a lot of people about this, and one of the things that I came across is how children, like, you know, they don't see it as like, oh, this person died. They kind of see it in a more literal way, like, oh, his body stopped working. And that was very interesting to me, how literal that interpretation is, where for us, as adults, we see it in such a different way, and for them it's just like, this is just what happened. And so that's something that we try to really hit hard in there. I mean, if you paid attention, we also had, like, I mean, there was zero dialogue in this thing. You know, it's all kind of, it is a child's world, and the perspective that we shoot from is also a child's point of view. Everything looks like a little fantasy world in the short.
Well, I will honestly say that I think my favorite moments or the heartwarming moments are the messages between the girl and the astronaut that's, you know, in crayon and being drawn out, you know, especially at the very end. You know, and being able to look up and say, it's not about death, it's just going someplace else.
Yep.
And, you know, you know, it's, again, it's kind of hard to see it that way when you lose all your innocence and you're dealing with death or, you know, something leaving and everything. But, all right, so I know you've gotten some critical acclaim here at some of the film festivals and everything. Where are you guys off to next in showing this short film?
Well, the next one that we're off to, actually, we're not supposed to officially announce just yet, but it's going to be in LA. Not the LA Film Fest, another one. And it's a pretty big one, but we can't announce just yet.
Okay.
Hopefully next month we can. But we'll be there. We'll be in LA around August. And then that's the big one that we have coming up. You know, there's nothing really on the horizon other than that one. I mean, this month was the big month. We were, you know, down at Nashville. We were at the USA Film Festival in Dallas. We were at the New Haven International Film Festival in Connecticut. I mean, this was the big month. So right now everything is just, you know, it's a circuit. So you always have to wait and see, and you never know. And then sometimes you'll hear, and then you got to be there tomorrow. So
right.
You know, so right now the big one we have coming up, as I said, will be in LA in August.
So do you? I know you raised part of the money using a Kickstarter, you know, project for this film. Do you have any plans on expanding it and making it into a feature?
No, not at all. We knew from the get-go that we were going to tell a short story, and that was it. And there was nothing to expand on. We were just going to get this, you know. As you know, the short film explores, you know, a 3-day, 4-day time period. And, you know, if there's more story to tell, you know, we believe that it's a short and that's all it needed to be, and we're moving on.
Okay. Well, I know you can't announce where you guys are going next, but can you tell us anything about the feature you guys are working on now?
Yeah, I'll let Matt answer this.
Yeah. The feature, we're looking to get wrapped up with post-production and music and all that kind of stuff by October. So we're probably going to be jumping on the national and international film festival circuit around the fall of 2014.
Okay.
That film, that's directed by a young lady named Chelsea Kane from Scranton, Pennsylvania. And we shot that in October and November of this past fall. So we're literally, in the editing suite now, putting that thing together, and then it's going off to score and soundtrack is probably by August, and that should be out this fall.
What's the title of the film?
The title of the film is called Behind Some Dark Cloud.
Okay. And what is it about?
That film is about a teenage girl who is it's a darker coming of age story. It's about a teenage girl that takes up with the town recluse, who everybody thinks is a vampire Satanist, but he's actually just an old punk rock goth guy from New York City that lives out in the country and kind of wants to stay away from everybody. And they kind of form this kind of reluctant friendship that turns romantic over time. Okay. Wow. It sounds interesting. It explores a relationship that's kind of, he's probably got about 25 years on her, so.
Wow. Okay, so we have a reoccurring theme on our shows when we do interviews. And it's in regards to superheroes. Now, I know you guys are filmmakers. So if you had the opportunity to direct a superhero film of an established character or villain, would you do that, or would you prefer writing your own and developing that as a story? Jeff, we'll go with you.
Tough question. Because my favorite superhero has been rehashed so many times now, which is Spider-Man, so I wouldn't even want to dare get near that. So many reboots. Maybe the one that I'd really like to do would be the Miles Morales Spider-Man.
Oh, okay.
Because I really like that storyline right now. But I don't know if I would be able to develop something I think that'd be fun. Yeah, I think about that all the time. Even with shorts, you never see anybody in the short film circuit. You never see something that's actually based off a real superhero in the short film circuit. Which that would be interesting. Minus the Marvel one shots, but those aren't really.
Right.
It's not those aren't independent. I don't know. I think Matt might have an interesting answer on this one, because I know his favorite character.
You don't know my favorite character.
Who's your favorite character, Matt?
My favorite character is the Grifter from Wildcats. I don't know. That's kind of a weirder one, but I would definitely go with. I would make a Grifter movie in a second. I think I would adapt a Grifter movie into a screenplay and take a shot at it. Because he's just, he's badass.
What happened to Deadpool?
Deadpool's getting made now.
Yeah, well, we'll see.
We actually need a good Deadpool movie, and something that does not involve Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah.
He's ruined too many superhero stuff. He's done. He needs to be retired. So, all right, we got about a minute left here, so I want you guys to tell our audience where they can check out more information about your films, and a couple little plug-ins before we close this thing out.
Okay, well, definitely they can check out information on this film is earththewayileftit.com. That's where you can also search. It's also on Vimeo. Just type in Earth the Way I Left It, or you can type in either one of our names. And then Matt, anything?
No, that's it. Just go to the website earththewayileftit.com and check it out.
And also the Facebook page. Facebook page, same thing. Just type in Earth the Way I Left It, and you'll find it there. And just,
what about Twitter accounts? Can people tweet you?
Yes, my Twitter is actually my name, my first and last name. That's my handle. So it's Jeff Pinilla, Pinilla.
Okay. Well, guys.